money from pensioners. So Keir Starmer being the worst offender, but many of his front bench had their snouts in the trough too. Since then, we've had constant U-turns. Now, I'm not saying don't U-turn, but on all...
Breaking. The Prime Minister just got called as popular as a bucket of sick on live television. And the worst part? The polling data proves she's absolutely right. So let me make sure I understand what's happening here. Britain is facing an economic crisis. The NHS has waiting lists stretching into forever. Families are choosing between heating their homes and feeding their children. And what does our Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, decide the nation needs to hear about? His emotional struggle watching a Netflix documentary about teenagers with his son. I'm sorry, what? This is leadership? While people are genuinely suffering, our top politician is discussing his feelings about streaming content, like he's running a parenting blog. If this sounds crazy to you, stick around and hit that subscribe button, because we're breaking down exactly how disconnected these politicians have become. And it gets so much worse. Enter Nana Akua, GB News presenter, who just delivered what might be the most savage political takedown of 2025. And I'm not talking about boring policy criticism. I'm talking about a full-blown, no-mercy destruction of Starmer's entire public image. She starts by saying she saw something online that she thought had to be fake, either a joke or AI-generated nonsense, because in 2025, you genuinely can't tell anymore. Deep fakes everywhere, satire that sounds like real news, actual government policy that sounds like satire. But no, this was real. This was actually our Prime Minister going on camera to discuss how challenging it was for him emotionally to watch television with his child. If the hardest thing in Keir Starmer's life right now is processing his feelings about a documentary series, then he's either completely disconnected from reality or he's got the easiest job in the country. And it's definitely not the second one. But Akua didn't stop there. She accused Starmer of using his own son as a prop to appear more relatable and gain sympathy from voters. And she might be onto something. Because here's what happens when you're a politician whose approval ratings are lower than a snake's belly. You get desperate. You start thinking, how do I remind people I'm human? How do I show them I'm just like them? So you pull out the family card. You talk about your kids, you watch Netflix, you share your struggles. Except you don't deal with the same issues, do you? Because while regular British citizens are lying awake at night wondering if they can afford to keep the lights on, Starmer's biggest concern is his emotional response to teenage development programming. While families are skipping meals to make ends meet, he's giving us his hot takes on streaming shows. The disconnect is staggering. Then Akua does something brilliant. She plays a clip of Starmer physically tripping at a public event and immediately brands him as the UK's version of Joe Biden. Now that is ruthless, because we all remember Biden's relationship with stairs, don't we? Air Force One became his sworn enemy, and now apparently Starmer is following in those stumbling footsteps. Look, I'm not saying physical coordination should be a requirement for political leadership. But here's the thing about optics. They matter, especially when you're already struggling in the polls. When you're already at rock bottom approval-wise, maybe try not to literally fall down in public. Just a suggestion, because every stumble gets captured, shared, memed, and turned into another piece of evidence that you're not fit for the job. And then comes the moment that's been echoing across British political commentary ever since, the knockout punch. The 7 words that perfectly capture what millions of British voters are feeling right now, but couldn't quite put into words. Are you ready? Because it's brutal, it's harsh, it's the kind of thing that sticks in your brain and won't let go. But according to recent polling data, it's also not even slightly exaggerated. Nana Akua looked directly into the camera and said, Keir Starmer is about as popular as a bucket of sick. A bucket of sick, not just regular sickness. An entire bucket full of it. You can't unhear it, you can't unthink it. That phrase is now permanently attached to Starmer's public image. That's the power of a well-crafted insult. But Akua wasn't done. She then pointed out something that makes Starmer's Netflix comments even more ridiculous. Since being elected just 17 months ago, he's been on 42 trips abroad. 42 international trips in less than a year and a half. That's nearly 3 trips abroad every single month. Now, there are 2 ways to interpret this. Either Starmer is absolutely dedicated to promoting British interests on the international stage, or he's doing what any sensible person would do when they're deeply unpopular at home, getting as far away as physically possible. Can't be criticised by British voters if you're literally never in Britain, right? It's actually quite smart when you think about it. Terrible leadership, obviously, but excellent avoidance tactics. But apparently one political punching bag wasn't enough for Akua's segment. She then turned her attention to Chancellor Rachel Reeves. And honestly, Reeves might have gotten it even worse than Starmer. Aqua described Reeves as someone who's always drowning in her own tears and completely out of her depth. Harsh criticism. But then she backed it up with actual statistics that make the situation look even more terrible. Rachel Reeves has been voted the least popular Chancellor in history. Not least popular right now. Not least popular in recent memory. In the entire recorded history of people having opinions about Chancellors, she's at the bottom. That's actually impressive in its own terrible way. You have to work quite hard to achieve that level of universal disapproval. But here's where it goes from bad to how is this even possible territory. A recent YouGov poll asked people one simple question. Do you think Labour is doing a good job managing the economy? The result, 0%. Actual, literal zero. Not a rounding error, not statistically insignificant, 0. In a country of millions of people, not one single person surveyed thought Labour was handling the economy competently. Think about that for a second. That's not just failure, that's achieving unanimous agreement that you're failing. That's bringing people together, just not in the way you want. And just when you think Aqua might wrap things up, she throws in one more politician, because apparently it's not a proper political rant unless you hit the hat trick. Enter Sadiq Khan, the Mayor of London, who has also been escaping his problems at home by jetting off to foreign countries. Specifically, Khan flew business class to Africa with 11 staff members, and the entire trip cost British taxpayers £83,000. Now, to be fair to Khan, he said the purpose was to promote London internationally. But here's where the numbers get really interesting. When you break down the costs, nearly £70,000 went on flights alone, another £11,000 on hotels, ground transport cost over £1,000, and food, almost £3,000 on food. That's quite the grocery bill for a work trip. The Express obtained all these figures through Freedom of Information requests to City Hall. And it raises an obvious question. Is this really necessary? London isn't exactly a hidden gem that needs international marketing. It's one of the most famous cities on the planet. People know London exists. So when things are tough at home, when you're facing criticism and problems are piling up, does a nice business class flight to Africa with a team of 11 staff members start to sound pretty appealing? I'm just saying I understand the temptation to get away from it all on the taxpayer's dime. But here's what makes Aqua's entire segment so effective, and why it's been shared thousands of times across social media. It's not just the savage one-liners, though those certainly help. It's not just the brutal honesty, though that's refreshing. It's that she's tapping into something real, something millions of British people are feeling right now but struggling to put into words. There's this overwhelming sense that our politicians exist in a completely different reality than the rest of us. That they're more concerned with their image, their international trips, their Netflix viewing diaries, than with the actual problems facing ordinary people every single day. When your Prime Minister is discussing his streaming habits while people are choosing between heating and eating, something has gone wrong. When your Chancellor has achieved 0% approval on economic management and still has her job, something has gone wrong. When your London Mayor is spending £83,000 on foreign promotional trips, something has gone wrong. And the beauty of Aqua's approach is that she doesn't just criticise in the dry, boring way that most political commentators do. She uses humour as a weapon. That clip of Starmer tripping, comparing him to Biden, calling him as popular as a bucket of sick. These aren't just random insults. They're memorable, shareable moments that cut through all the usual political noise. They're the kind of things that stick in people's minds long after they've finished watching. The kind of things that get repeated in pubs and workplaces. The kind of things that get shared on social media with comments like, "This is absolutely perfect," and finally someone's saying it. In today's media environment, where everyone is competing for attention and the news cycle moves at lightning speed, that matters. You can have all the facts and figures you want, but if you can't make people actually pay attention, if you can't make your message memorable, what's the point? The real story here isn't just about one presenter taking shots at politicians. We see that every day. The real story is that these shots are landing because they reflect what actual voters are thinking and feeling. The approval ratings prove it. The polling data confirms it. The complete absence of public support for Labour's economic management demonstrates it beyond any doubt. British people are tired of politicians who seem to live on a different planet. They're tired of empathy performances and relatability content when what they actually need is competent leadership and real solutions to real problems. That bucket of sick comment isn't just a memorable insult. It's a warning shot. It's a reflection of how deep the disconnect has become between the political class and everyone else. And unless something changes dramatically, Unless these politicians start actually addressing the concerns of ordinary people, instead of sharing their Netflix feelings and taking expensive foreign trips, that bucket of sick comparison is going to follow them right through the next election. The voters have spoken, the polls have confirmed it, and now one presenter has said what millions were already thinking. So what do you think? Is Aqua right about the bucket of sick comparison? Are these politicians as disconnected from reality as they appear? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if you're as frustrated with this situation as the rest of Britain seems to be, share this video with someone who needs to see it. Hit that subscribe button if you want more honest breakdowns of what's really happening in British politics. They're not going to hold themselves accountable, so we'll do it for them. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.